Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Shawnee Sutton. I'm the enrollment manager here at Georgetown University School of Continuing Studies. And today we will be discussing the Data Science Certificate Program. I am joined by Dr. Benjamin Bangford, who is the faculty director for that program. Just to go over a little bit of housekeeping, we will be discussing the program. Dr. Bangford will go over the program with you. At the end, we will have a Q&A session where myself and Dr. Bangford will answer any questions that you have. So you can also type any questions that you have in the question panel. I will be answering those while Dr. Bangford is going over the program. And I will leave some for the Q&A session. And with that, I will allow Dr. Bangford to begin. Again, thank you all for joining us.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining me this afternoon. Very happy for this chance to talk about the Data Science Certificate Program. So when we think about data science at Georgetown, maybe you guys have heard a little bit about data science and what data scientists are, and maybe you've heard a lot of conflicting information as well. I think that that's pretty common because the term data science probably covers a fairly wide range of activities. And part of the reason for that is because data scientists are generalists who have a lot of different skills. And so, for example, this quote from Nathan Yao on The Rise of the Data Scientist talks about data scientists are people who can do it all. If you're more statistically or analytically oriented, well, you do have to know APIs and databases and how to get data. If you're a designer or you're interested in visualization, you need to know how to do things programmatically. And if you're a programmer or computer scientist, really you have to understand how to analyze and find meaning in data. And part of the reason that this is happening is because we live in an information economy. And I think that's become even more apparent during the time of the pandemic when people are working from home. And there's a huge amount of data, a huge amount of information. There's a lot of value in. And so having these sort of general skills of combining the sort of analytical methodologies, visualization methodologies, and programming methodologies is sort of essential and becoming more and more essential to today's workforce, but essential to doing jobs that sort of deliver a lot of value. And part of that value comes from this idea of a data product, right? That's actually what data scientists produce. And data products are interesting because they are self-adapting, they're broadly applicable, but they derive value from data and then they generate more data in return, either by influencing people's decisions or by making inferences and predictions on new data. And I like to think of these things as engines or economic engines because they both derive value from data and they create data. And probably you all experience a lot of these data products in your daily lives. I think the things that come to mind the most are maybe the things that we would broadly label AI. So you would probably think of things like Alexa or Siri, but these things are actually in a number of places that sometimes it's not so visible. Something like self-driving cars, right? These things are making decisions about what to show you when you're online shopping. They're making decisions about how to route delivery vehicles and how to schedule packages to show up on time. They influence emergency room wait times, and they're just sort of everywhere. And because of that, they're incredibly valuable things to work on. So a data scientist is someone who builds data products, which, if you want to become a data scientist to build these data products, the question becomes, well, what do you need to know? And data science itself, is sort of alluded to with Nathan Yao's quote, sits in the middle of three primary fields. So the first is computer science, and a lot of times we think about computer science as databases, programming, algorithms, and data structures. along with statistics and domain expertise, right? So statistical analytics and being able to sort of find broad trends and generalizations with central tendency and probability and things like that. And if you combine computer science and statistics, you get machine learning, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a second. But one of the key pieces of data science is this ability to communicate and to have deep knowledge of a specific domain, whether it's logistics or emergency rooms or natural language processing or image processing or something like that, and the ability to communicate it. And that's where that visualization aspect comes into it, right? Data scientists have to combine all of these things in order to achieve data science. Otherwise, if you just have domain expertise in computer science, you're just doing traditional software development. Or if you have domain expertise in statistical ability, you're just doing traditional research. It's really this combination of computer science, statistics, and visualization. So this is sort of the premise for thinking about the data science certificate. What are the things that you need to learn? And one thing that we noted was that the way that data scientists operate is they operate through this pipeline, where you can think of the work of a data scientist being iterative, where they acquire data, that's the data ingestion phase, and then data is never produced for an end user. Data is produced for a variety of reasons, but at some point you're going to have to take that data, you're going to have to wrangle it, you're going to have to get it into the shape that you need in order to analyze it, right? And that, there's things in there like long form versus wide form, and whether you have unstructured or structured data, different types of encodings and things. So you have to wrangle it into a form, and then often you have to put that wrangled data into a database, right? It's computational data storage. And the database gives you the opportunity to query the data, right? What are the top end things that meet these criteria, right? What is the average of these things across these date ranges, right? Databases are great at answering questions like that. And then eventually you're going to come to some hypothesis, right? Some model that will make this data product work, and we'll be able to make inferences and decisions, and you'll pull the data out of your computational data storage and you'll start to model it, right? And build applications from those models, which your users will use either through a visualization or through other types of interactions. And because this is a data product, they will produce new data that you'll then ingest, and then you'll just continue this process over and over again. So this is sort of what we think of as, we talked about the skills of a data scientist, and here's the direct work of a data scientist. And when you put these things together, this is how we have framed our data science certificate. So the certificate is 8 courses over the course of a single cohort that is fairly intensive, right? So you have 108 hours of coursework that occurs mostly on Saturdays with 4 Fridays thrown in there. And we see the certificate as providing a vocabulary and an introduction to all of these different facets of data science that enable you to sort of see your career trajectory and your learning path, and to be able to embark on it successfully. So we bookend the course between the foundations of data science, which is the introduction and what is the data science and how do you do data science, and then an ethical and applied discussion at the end of the course, where we talk about scientific transfer and ethics and decision making and that kind of stuff. And then between those 2 bookends, we have 2 phases. So the first phase is the programming or software engineering phase, where we talk about software engineering for data. And what that says, what that course talks about is, if you are a data scientist, you are likely going to be working on a professional software development team. And if your career trajectory is taking you towards data scientists, you might not be a professional software developer, but in order to manipulate and deal with data the way the data scientists do, you'll need some programming. And so that class talks about, how do data scientists integrate into a software engineering team? What do software engineering teams look like, especially if you're not a professional software developer? Then we talk about databases. So that's the data sources and storage class. We talk about relational databases, Postgres, non-relational databases, and document stores like Mongo. And then the last course in the sequence talks about ingestion and wrangling. How can you interact with APIs? How can you deal with your data and your pandas data frames and rope it into a form that you can perform computation on? So that's phase 1. And then phase 2 is the sort of analytical phase. So our first course is statistics, where we talk about central limit theorem. We talk about tests and hypothesis testing and probability. So that gets into the basics of building inferential models and also descriptive models. And then the second two classes focus more on machine learning. In machine learning, we talk about a range of different predictive models, from generalized linear models to decision trees to ensembles to artificial neural networks, and we just give a sort of broad survey of all the different types of modeling that exists. And then in visual analytics, if machine learning is, what is machine learning? Visual analytics is how do you do machine learning well? Where we talk about this interactive workflow between the data scientist, the data, and the model, and how you evaluate the performance of the model visually in order to both present your work and to understand what the model is doing under the hood and sort of get to the best results. So that's the overall structure of the course and sort of the skills and the workflow, and then how the course tries to bring all of those things in. And like I said, it is fairly intensive. It's 108 hours, and it's your weekends for a semester. But I think a lot of students have found it very valuable in order to bootstrap their data science careers. To that end, we had to focus on something in this 108 hours. It's not just a general survey of data science. So our focus is on applied machine learning and programming in Python. So let's talk about the applied machine learning part. There are a lot of different ways to be a data scientist, I think, and they range the gambit, but I think that at the core of data science is machine learning, right? Building predictive models, building those data products. And machine learning models are statistical models, right? So, they can be generally used in a wide range of domains and different career paths. And so we really wanted to make sure that students had the opportunity to really dive into the sort of most valuable part of being a data scientist and the most valuable part of this education that we could provide. So that's why we focus on applied machine learning. And the applied part is also important, right? This is pragmatic. We want you to be able to use the tools that we're discussing. And so the focus is not on the academic theory or the mathematics behind the models. Instead, the focus is on how do I create these models, right, on the data that I have, and then how do I interpret what the models are doing and how do I understand what the models are doing, and then two, how do I make the models better? How do I make them more predictive? So that's really the focus on applied machine learning. We're thinking about this as professional data scientists, and if you're going to get hired and move into a job, what are the skills that you need to know? And actually, that's another good point. When you look at this list of faculty here, the faculty here are all professional data scientists, right? And so they, we are in the workforce. We are hiring data scientists. The things that we teach are what we would expect if we were hiring a junior data scientist to come on board the team, and the things that they would need to know and be able to do. Now, this focus on Python is also a consistency thing. So I would say that in data science world, generally speaking, there are two primary choices for conducting data science, Python and R. And there's some other good ones too, Julia, Java, and some other ones. But we wanted to pick one that was most general. And we wanted to pick one so that you just had one thing that you had to learn and prepare for. And so we selected Python, not because it's better than the other options, but that's just what we picked in order to give you guys consistent experience. So when you're looking at the skills that you'll be learning through these certificates, these are all very good resume building skills using SciPy and NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, scikit-learn, sort of primary Python packages, getting used to Jupyter notebooks, using Postgres and Mongo will all really help you, especially if you're pursuing Python-based careers. But none of these things are going to hurt you if you want to switch after the class and pursue R. A lot of what we talk about is very applicable. It's just some minor points in syntax and the tools that you use that you have to shift there. Also, another important thing to note is that all of these tools are free and open source software. which is common. But that means that there's very little investment in terms of having to buy software, right? Or being locked out of software, right? We want to make sure that you had access to the professional tools that data scientists use on a day-to-day basis, and these are those tools. And B, that there wasn't some license restriction or something else that was preventing you from getting involved with these tools and really learning them in depth. So that's why we've selected these tools. So who are the types of students that we're thinking about who join the certificate? I think you all are here because you're asking yourself, is this certificate the right certificate for me? And so what I want to do is I want to try to frame this, and I think if you can put yourself into one of these buckets, even if you're not specifically there, but if you view yourself in a particular way, then that will help you sort of understand the relationship between your goals, your educational and your career goals, and the certificate. So we generally think of the certificate as being made up of three types of people. So the first type of people are folks who have maybe a more of a math background or more of an analytical background. They're used to creating reports, asking questions of data, coming up with the questions to ask of data. And so those type of students have a variety of quantitative backgrounds, I would say, or quantitative careers. Typically, a lot of folks in finance might consider themselves in this role, or logistics. All of these roles are sort of analytical roles. And even in like the sort of nonprofit and social sciences world, right? A lot of those folks, if you're dealing with economic data or demographic data, or you're trying to make decisions, a lot of times you fall into this category of being more of a statistical type person or an analytical type person. And if you fall into that role, the reason that you would want to take this certificate is because you want to take advantage of technology that you don't necessarily have had access to before in order to improve your results or to improve your career trajectory. So as an example of many examples, but one potential example here is maybe you're very used to using spreadsheets and Excel in order to do analytics, but you've realized, I have way more data than I can get into a spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet's slow, and it's easily broken, and so if you're in that place, the certificate is great for you because it exposes you to databases and Python programming and really expands what you did previously in spreadsheets to sort of bigger data sets, and allows you to answer bigger questions and get more skills. So just as an example, but there are many examples of folks who are more analytical. Probably the most straightforward type of student is the programmer student. So if you do have some previous software development expertise, you're proficient with computing techniques, and maybe it's a different programming language, maybe it's not Python, but maybe it's something else. But you've sort of seen the writing on the wall, and you need to put machine learning into your toolkit, right? As opposed to, maybe you're a web developer, and you're sort of seeing more and more that you want more sort of back-end work or more inferential work in order to improve user experience or something like that. This class would be the right for you because you would equip you with all of that modeling and data-driven techniques. And then the last category, this is the fuzziest category, but it's not a throwaway category. And that's this person who's a domain expert. And the domain experts are people who are in a specific field, right? So often you're in a career, maybe you've been in that career for a couple of years, and you're thinking deeply about something in that career, right? Whether it's education or whether it's art or whether it's healthcare or insurance or whatever it is, you have a job and you're an expert in that job, and you realize I've got all of this data and I have all of these problems, and I need a way to figure out how to match this data to solving these problems. And if you're that type of person, then this certificate is absolutely the right certificate for you as well, because even if you don't have the technical background that potentially your classmates may have, the certificate as a whole gives you this perspective of how to get from I have data and a problem to a solution. And it provides a very important framework for understanding how data-driven solutions are conducted. So these are sort of the types of students that we think of wanting to join the cohort. And actually, that sort of term cohort is also very important because if you don't really ever self-identify to me or to the admissions team which of these buckets you filled in, but the ideal for me is that I have a classroom that's made up of 1/3 of each of these students, because you're going to go through the certificate as a single cohort from start to finish as a single group, and in a single semester complete the certificate. And one of the most important things that we do in the certificate, besides the coursework, is we engage in capstone projects, right? And so what will happen is, at the very start of the certificate, you're going to get together in a team of 3 to 4 other people, and you're going to use the entire term to create an end-to-end data analysis on a data set of your choosing. And so if you're in one of these 3 categories, what that means is that you will be paired, hopefully, with other people who are in different categories. And that gives you sort of the best opportunity to learn and to collaborate. And in the end, you'll be presenting your project to the course and publish your report and your presentation on Georgetown's website, and you'll have a GitHub repository that shows your work that you've done, and that's often very valuable in a career search, or just very valuable for portfolio purposes in general. And I know a lot of people don't have necessarily the time or inclination to work on a side project, and so we want to support the creation of these important fixtures. And the Capstone Project is a way that you learn in class, and then you apply those things, and when you're confronted with the problems, it helps you ask the right questions of the faculty, right? You're not just sitting in there in class just trying to absorb information. You actually have to do it. And in fact, we think that that is so important that we have a faculty member whose sole job is to support you in the capstone process and to advise you in your capstone courses throughout the entire certificate program. And there's also a teaching assistant who's with each cohort who also advises. So even though you have different instructors for the different classes, we provide direct support in order to help you achieve great and interesting things, at least in the capstone space. So that's sort of a broad overview of what you do during the certificate. I'm going to hazard a guess for what you guys are interested in for after the certificate, and just sort of say that at least these are the things that students in the certificate program have been successful at once they've completed the certificate. So one area is promotion or advancement at the current jobs. A lot of students utilize their education benefits in order to get new roles or responsibilities. And that's a big one, but career change is also a big factor, right? I'd like to get into data science. I'd like to get into a more technical career. I'd like to become a little bit more quantitative, and absolutely the certificate is a good starting place. And also a lot of students use the data science certificate as a post-baccalaureate program, potentially to apply for graduate school. Maybe it's been a while since you've been in your undergrad, or you didn't take an undergrad in one of these areas, and so you want to get prerequisites or you want to get recommendations or something. This is also another opportunity for certificate students. So that's afterwards, and then maybe I should jump back to the beginning and talk a little bit about how you might prepare for the certificate. So another question that I'm commonly asked is, do I have the right knowledge? Do I have the right skills? And so I will say that preparation for the certificate is important, right? The certificate is part of a learning path. And one thing that I like to say is that what the certificate does is it teaches you how to learn, right? You're learning how to learn. And we give you enough vocabulary to make you dangerous because you can start Google searching, right? That's what the certificate does. But the certificate is just a piece of a self-learning direction. And that does have to start before the certificate if you don't have any of the skills that I talked about before. So Python is a prerequisite. We don't teach you how to program in Python. So you do need to be familiar with Python. And if you're a novice, you might say, well, how familiar is familiar? And so what we say is that you have to be able to write and execute Python code, right? Novice experience is required. And if you're new to programming, I recommend Think Python by Alan B. Downey. It's sort of an excellent introduction to the sort of novice or intermediate programmer. If you're worried about your mathematical literacy, the prerequisite for the certificate is that you have to have sort of a basic understanding of probability, mathematical symbols. It's about literacy, right? We're not going to be asking you to, do proofs or solve quadratic equations or anything like that. But there will be, mathematical terminology and symbols on the board. And so it's useful to just have that numeracy coming in. And if you feel like you need a refresher, then I'd also recommend Think Stats by Alan B. Downey. Both very good books that just sort of help you get ready for the program. And I realize that books aren't the way that everyone learns, but if you don't learn via books, hopefully these will also send you in the right direction for the learning path that you need. And then the last thing, and this is something I think almost no certificate student comes in thinking that they need to know, but one thing that happens, especially as we're programming and we're using these very powerful tools, right, is that there's really no GUI interface to these tools. You're going to be using your terminal and typing commands in the terminal a decent amount, and so it's worth it learning how to use some of the underlying super user features. In particular, understanding how to use Bash or the PowerShell, how to navigate your file system, how to execute commands and things like that. And so if you've never done that before, I absolutely recommend taking a look at how to use your PowerShell or how to use your terminal. If you're on Mac or Linux, you can look at this, well, even actually Windows now, you can look at this book, Learning the Bash Shell. If you're on Windows, you'd have to install the Ubuntu subsystem or the Linux subsystem for Windows on Windows 10 in order to use this. Or if you prefer, you could look at resources for how to learn the PowerShell. But in the end, while we do have a TA that's happy to provide as much technical support as possible, you have to be able to use the machine that you bring to the course as effectively as possible, and those are sort of the best things that you can do to prepare for the certificate. So I should wrap up here shortly, but so I can have maximum time to answer questions. But one other thing I'll say is that right now the certificate is being conducted using Flex Learning. In Flex Learning, you're going to have the same learning objectives as in-class courses. The Flex Learning counts towards the completion of the certificate, and you will be taught by the same instructors who would teach you in person at Georgetown with real-time video conferencing is sort of the key to Flex Learning and other online activities that we've sort of been working on over the summer because right now we are minimizing the number of interactions that happens on campus. So part of our goals are to ensure that we have small class sizes, that we can set up as many Zoom calls between the faculty and students and small groups, and to have as much participation in the sort of lecture calls and using breakout rooms and things like that. So that is likely how courses will be conducted in the spring. I don't, it's just something to be aware of, that we're sort of still dealing with the pandemic and still trying to keep everyone as safe as possible. So in the end, I think that the most important note about Flex Learning is that Flex Learning is real-time learning, and it should be as familiar as classroom learning, right? You'll be expected to attend the Zoom classes at the times that they are scheduled, and to interact regularly and frequently and have face-to-face discussions. And that's because this is not an online course. right? This is a classroom course that's being conducted using flex learning. And of course, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have about our experience of this over the past couple of semesters, and what that's like, and how we've gone about things. So the last thing I'll mention is that there are introductory elective, second to last thing I should say, there are some introductory elective courses. So again, if you're preparing for the certificate and you want more educational content before you join the certificate, we have Python Basics for Data Analytics and SQL Fundamentals. Both of those things occur before the certificate cohort, and you can take those courses in preparation for the certificate. And these things actually fill into a sort of overall track that I wanted to mention here, where we sort of think of the novice as having a skills focus, right? Programming, computation. And so we have our pre-certificate courses that fill into that novice realm, and those are those courses I just talked about. The data science certificate is here. It's in this applied section, right? Where you're thinking about workflow and methods and presentation, interpretability, what does it look like working on a team that does this kind of work? And that's the data science certificate, which is what we've been talking about. There is also another certificate for professionals. So this is an advanced skills focus in the advanced data science certificate. So here's where we explore deep subject expertise, networking, innovation, specialized topics, and really dive into a lot of like very deep areas in the advanced data science certificate. And then at the senior level, there's a leadership focus, right? The technology leadership, coaching, change leadership, entrepreneurship, and those kind of things. And this is actually all at Georgetown University, right? So, you can start from the pre-certificate courses and go all the way up through the technology leadership, and engage in the learning path in a lot of different ways. So it just doesn't end at the certificate. There's a lot of opportunities here for professional learners who would like to engage their educational benefits or engage their career building over their sort of initial careers or mid-careers, and sort of build the tools, techniques, and networks that are important to having a very successful career in data science. So that's it from me. Shani, I can turn it back over to you if you'd like.
Yes, thank you so much. Let's see. So I'm going to talk about just a brief overview of the admissions process. The application is consisted of a personal statement, well, a statement of purpose, a resume or CV, and a $35 non-refundable application fee. Once you have completed your application and submitted it, it's submitted when you complete your $35 application fee. Now, the application decisions are not on a rolling basis, so you will not find out anything about your enrollment decision until after the deadline. So I know, people will get their applications completed well in advance, but you do not receive decisions until after the deadline. The spring 2021 deadline is December 1 of 2020. The spring cohort begins actually February the 20th, not the 23rd. So that's the typo. It actually begins February the 20th, 2021. And we also have our summer 2021 application open as well. And the application deadline is February 15th, 2021. We are working on the schedule for summer 2021, so we do not have the start date as of yet. But the spring 2021 begins February the 20th. Next slide. Okay, so I've had this question in the question box a lot, so I wanted to wait until we got to this section. So as you see, the tuition is $7,496. We have funding options. We have an interest-free payment plan, and this consists of 4 payments of 25%. So it's the actual total tuition, and it's split into 4 equal payments of 25%. Your first 25% will be due once you have confirmed registration, confirmed enrollment that you're coming, and our enrollment team has processed your registration. You'll be contacted from our student accounts department to process the first payment. So again, the interest-free payment is 4 equal payments of 25%. We do accept the GI Bill. That's the only one that we accept for non-credit certificate programs. You will work with our veterans certifying official. Her name is Monique Singleton. You will work with her in regards to your amount that you have or what you qualify for, and she will work with you in the process of getting payment and everything done for that. We do accept employer education and training budget. And that goes in conjunction with the federal agency training funds. So the difference, if it's a non-government agency that you're coming from, you have to complete a form called the incentive pay form. And what that does is it actually tells our student accounts department that someone else is covering your tuition. And that would be the person that will be billed for your tuition. So they will be invoiced for that as well. We do know that sometimes employers reimburse employees after the fact. I'm sorry, excuse me. So our student accounts department will work with you to make sure that the information is needed for you to be reimbursed. For the federal agency training funds, we accept the SF-182 form. Your agency, you go through a lot of signatures to get that approved. But once it's done, you will send the approved SF-182 form to our student accounts department, where the information of the agency will be on that form, and that's who the invoice will be sent to. Last but not least, students do have the option of taking private education loans. Because we're non-credit, our programs do not qualify for any federal funding as far as like the FAFSA is concerned. So students have the option to take out private education loans. We have a list of loan providers that we have worked with in the past, but the most common one is Sallie Mae. And the next funding and tuition option we have is discounts. So listed we have EdAssist, Georgetown Alumni, and the OPM Federal Scholarship Alliance program. So EdAssist is an organization that works with some companies in regards to tuition payments. If your company is a part of EdAssist, you will receive a 10% discount. But to prove that your company is a part of EdAssist, you have to submit a letter of credit to our student accounts department, and we will actually update your excuse me, your student record with the information so that you can apply that so that we can apply the 10% discount. The Georgetown Alumni 10% discount is for anyone that's completed a certificate program, a degree program, bachelor's, master's, PhD, or any other certificate, a Georgetown credit certificate at our school. We consider you an alumni and you'll receive a 10% discount. You'll have to let us know that you're trying to get the alumni discount. We will have to verify your alumni status, and we will update the account so that we can apply the 10% discount. The OPM Federal Scholarship Alliance is for federal government employees only. We have a partnership with OPM to allow federal government employees to receive a 10% discount for taking any of our programs. And it's only for federal government employees, only just employees. It's not for your family members or anything like that. It's not for I guess like it's not for DC government or city government employees. It's only for federal government. Next slide. So with that, we will start our Q&A session. Right here, you see the contact information for our enrollment team, the telephone number, and the email address if you have any questions after we complete the webinar. I'm going to start with the first question. The first question is, could you please briefly compare data management and data science? Would studying data science be helpful if my goal is to be a data manager? Ben,
Yeah, so I mean, I think that there are the primary difference is that the data science certificate is more technical and more quantitative. We have certainly had folks who are interested in becoming data science managers take the certificate in the past. And their stated purpose was that they wanted to be able to have a deeper understanding of the challenges of the folks that they were managing, a better understanding of the vocabulary of what was happening, and be able to sort of discuss more deeply in the recruiting process and in the mentorship and management process than they might get otherwise. But if that sort of management focus is on a small team of data scientists, or is sort of more specific management, then yes, I think the data science certificate is valuable, and we've had certainly many students who have taken that approach in the past. Especially folks who are interested in recruiting data scientists, and that can be a big challenge, right? Because the skill set is in such demand, and if you're applying to a data science job and the recruiting manager doesn't have any idea what they're talking about, that's often very off-putting to potential recruits. And so that was one of the biggest motivations we heard from folks who are taking this program in order to pursue management goals. But the certificate doesn't talk about management particularly. The advanced data science certificate does have some courses on building effective data teams. And so that might be another place to look if you want to sort of think about how do you recruit, how do you manage, what are some of the data science specific management challenges. You can look at that. But I also don't think that that's what the data management certificate covers either. The data management certificate is really about how do you deal with large amounts of data, if I'm not mistaken. So hopefully that provides you some facets into these different programs and what it might be like to pursue a management role in them.
Thanks, Ben. The next question is Capstone Project. That they were asking, is it directed? Would they pick the challenge or combine decision?
So the capstone, it's up to you. So you propose what data set you want to work on and what problem you want to work on. So you're not given like a menu to choose from. You can decide with your team what you would like to work on. In the first day or the second day of the certificate, we engage in this big like ice-breaking process where you meet with your classmates and you figure out who you want to be on a team with, and you propose problems and you hear about data sets, and we spend like the whole day trying to prepare for the capstones for the rest of the term. And so often, if you don't have a particular idea, often a student, one of your classmates will bring an idea for the capstone project, and we'll put out some suggestions, but it's not mandatory that you take one of the suggestions. You can propose whatever you'd like to do. But we do have a dedicated faculty member who's responsible for ensuring that whatever you choose is going to be successful. And they often give a lot of advice about, well, that's too big of a challenge, or you're never going to be able to get that data set. And they scope you down and they put you on a path for success. And so you have that dedicated support in your capstone project in order to guide you through the entire process. And you have the teaching assistant who is a former student who took the certificate, who sort of knows what it looks like from end to end. And they're also there to provide you advice. So there's a lot of support for the capstone project. But yeah, it's open-ended, and you get to decide what you'd like to work on.
Thank you. The next question, I'm working in data management in clinical trials. How can this certificate apply to my work?
Well, the statistical modeling, I think, is important to clinical trials, especially if you're looking at binary sort of classification. In the certificate, we certainly dive into an understanding of precision and recall, and what those things mean when analyzing a statistical model. And I think that often comes up in clinical trials and sort of understanding what these percentages mean. Different types of modeling I could certainly see being important in trying to do an effects analysis or factor analysis, you know, in what's happening inside of your clinical trials or even for pre-trials. And if you're dealing with data management, potentially you just have a lot of data that you need to deal with, and so equipping yourselves with the database skills, some lightweight programming skills in order to deal with those data sets and manage them more efficiently will make you more effective at your job and maybe more happy with the sort of data management problems that you're facing, or feeling like you have the ability to sort of deal with those things a little bit more. So without knowing exactly what you do, that's hopefully a general answer that might inspire you to apply for the certificate.
Thank you. The next question. How may I speak with a student who has completed the program to get a better idea of the application of data science? We have student ambassadors that we can connect you with. Please email us at the email address that you see right in front of you, and we will work to connect you with one of our student ambassadors. Our student ambassadors are amazing with prospective students. They can give you the student experience, and they're very helpful with any other information, guidance that you may need. So we do have that available. So please just email us and let us know that you want to speak with a student ambassador of the data science program, and we will connect you. Ben, did you have anything to add to that?
No?
Okay. Okay. The next question. If we have to miss a Saturday for either sickness or work, is the course recorded to be able to make up?
So the data science certificate has a 100% attendance policy. There's no tests or grades in this, right? In order to get the certificate, you need to have a successful completion of all of the courses. There are a few deliverables related to the capstones, but those are not subjectively graded, right? Those are just designed as communication between you and the faculty in order to make sure that you're getting the best experience possible. So on a case-by-case basis, we do, if you're sick, certainly, we'll talk about if you have to miss a Saturday and how you can make that Saturday up, which will often require some like an additional assignment or something like that, depending on how much you miss and what you miss. It's on a case-by-case basis with the instructor. To get at the specifics of your question, in flex learning, the sessions are recorded. So if the spring or summer is still in flex learning, then yes, the sessions will be recorded and you'll have access to them. When we return to in-classroom instruction, the sessions will not be recorded.
Thank you. Next question. What makes this certificate program unique and different from other boot camps?
Well, one thing is that we're not a boot camp, which I think is important to note. And there's a couple of interesting facets to that. So the boot camp is designed to take you from zero to hero, I think is something I hear a lot. And part of the boot camp business model is that they'll place you in a job after, and they sort of make money by charging your future employer a percentage of your salary. So we are not a boot camp. We are a professional development certificate, right? So the folks that your classmates will be professionals. Georgetown is an educational institution, so we are interested in facilitating your entire sort of academic and career goals, as opposed to just pushing you or training you into one very particular skill set at the end of the boot camp period. So you can think of Georgetown as opposed to boot camps as a little bit more of a traditional education experience that has a more holistic perspective on education and a more professional perspective, certainly in the PDC programs. And so I think that does a lot. So one difference that I've noticed from the boot camps to the certificate program is that the boot camps don't, the instructors in the boot camps are very focused on the skills that they're teaching. They don't maybe not necessarily have the same deep background that the faculty of the data science program does, right? So, the faculty of the data science program all have graduate degrees, they've all studied this for a long time. They've all been in their careers for a very long time. And the motivation of the faculty, we're all adjunct faculty. We're not, employed full-time by Georgetown. But the primary motivation of the faculty is, we work in this field, we are hiring and trying to hire these folks. And for the majority of the faculty is the skills that we're looking for and the thought that goes into, what we're looking for when we're hiring, that's what we're trying to teach you guys in the certificate program. And so that's, I think, a very different perspective. And very beneficial when you start thinking about like the network with your classmates, the network with the faculty, and where sort of the professional certificate fits in with the sort of data science community in DC, and there is one. The other thing I'll say is that I don't know if this is unfair, but potentially because of that distinction that I just made, potential employers have a slightly dimmer view on the boot camp process. There's a question there of whether these things are the boot camps are being effective at getting people ready for jobs, whereas something like Georgetown University certificate program, is a little bit more tried and true in terms of you have a better understanding of what folks learned in the certificate process. So it's certainly a very different experience, right? It's the certificate program at Georgetown is only on Saturdays. We expect you guys to be working professionals, so while it is intensive, I think it's intensive because of the amount of information that's delivered in the time. It's not intensive from that like sort of boot camp perspective, like trying to take you all the way from nothing to delivering a job. So hopefully that's a little bit of perspective.
Also, I just wanted to reiterate that I'm getting a lot of questions about the time frame for classes. You do have 2 classes that you will take on a Friday evening and a Saturday evening. So that will be a total of 4 sessions, which means you will have 2 Fridays from 6:30 to 9:30 and 2 Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Normally the other classes run on Saturdays. So they will be 2 Saturdays that will be from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You may run into 2 courses that run in the same month and it's on Saturdays. So that month, your 4 Saturdays may be taken up with 2 courses. Just wanted to explain that schedule to people because I am getting a lot of those questions. If anyone, was just wondering about the time frame. I don't have any more questions in the question box, but we have about 6 more minutes. So if you guys want to ask more questions, please feel free. I'll give you a few minutes to, think of any questions that you have. Will the classes on Saturday overlap? No, they will not overlap. So you will have one course with maybe the first 2 Saturdays of the month, and then the next course would be the next 2 Saturdays. So they won't ever overlap.
Yeah, just to clarify that point a little bit, the certificate is this certificate is in a cohort-based program, which means that you'll start in foundations with your cohort and you'll go all the way through. So it's, about 18 weeks that, basically every Saturday. We do try to put breaks in to the cohort. So, there's at least one break before your capstone presentations is the way that we try to schedule it. And then there's, obviously holidays over the course of the semester that will also break up the schedule a little bit. But for this particular program, basically, you have 16, a full semester worth of Saturdays is taken up. And then there are 2 classes, software engineering and machine learning, that have Friday evening components, but those are the only 2 classes that have Friday evening components. And that's different from, say, like the advanced data science certificate, which is open enrollment, and those courses are on Saturdays, but it's not every single Saturday. You can take the courses whenever they're offered. You don't have to do it in a cohort fashion.
Yes, and speaking of those 2 courses, no, they're not offered for free. They are, from the top of my head, anywhere from $395 to $495 a piece. But you will have to, check the website for that. But they are not offered for free, unfortunately. And for the Federal Academic Alliance Scholarship, they are only for federal government employees only. Yes, the 2 prerequisite courses that someone mentioned earlier, those are the courses that are not a part of the certificate. You don't have to apply for those courses. They are open enrollment. And again, they are not offered for free. Yes, the presentation will be available after today. I will be sending an email to everyone that registered for the webinar, so they will get a copy of the presentation as well as the recording. Ben, I'll leave this question for you. Well, yeah, do you need to take the prerequisite? Will it count against you if you do not take it?
No, you do not need to take the prerequisite, and no, it will not count against you if you do not take it. Those courses are available for folks who would like more preparation and more introduction to the certificate program. They're also, open enrollment, so you can take them at any time. So if you complete the certificate and you think, well, I could use more, time thinking about SQL or Python and these things, you could take them after the certificate if you wanted to. But we schedule them before the certificate just to ensure that if you feel like that's something you'd like to take in order to prepare for the certificate or be better prepared for the certificate, you can.
Thank you. So with that, I'm going to say thank you all so much for joining us. This concludes our presentation. We hope that you all received a plethora of information that helps in your decision to apply for the program. If you have any further questions, please feel free to email us at the email address you see on this slide in front of you. For those of you that may have joined a bit late, I will be sending out the presentation and a copy of the recording for you to review. And if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to us. Our enrollment team will be able to answer some questions. And if there's something specific that you want to ask Dr. Bankford, we'll be sure to connect you all. Again, thank you. I hope your families are doing well and safe. Hope your children are doing great with their virtual learnings. And we look forward to seeing your applications. Again, Ben, I want to thank you so much for all your information that you provide to prospective students. You're amazing. And I think that this program is an absolute amazing program, and everyone on here will benefit from being a part of it. Again, thank you guys so much, and have a great evening and afternoon. Thank you.